Somebody listening right now feels like the things that they did in the past make them unworthy of forgiveness. What would you want them to understand?
I am worthy of love and I am worthy of compassion and I'm worthy of respect and I'm worthy of all of these things because I exist. That's when you start learning. That's when you start learning how to set boundaries. Why? Because I am worthy of respect and I'm worthy of love and I'm worthy of having this healthy relationship. And
That we all have a past and it doesn't have to define who you are today. You can acknowledge the mistakes that you made, accept responsibility, make amends, apologize if you need to, leave the past mistakes in the past, learn from them and grow.
Right? And shame is like a prison, and you are the only person who has a key to let yourself out. So when you decide to forgive yourself for the things that you've done, that's just saying, hey, I trust you to have learned to do better and to choose to do better going forward. And that is what forgiveness is in the end.
Shame dies and forgiveness shows up when secrets are told in safe places. Welcome to No Alcohol Needed, the podcast. You're hanging out at the intersection of emotional wellness, personal growth, and living an alcohol-free life. Here we share everything we've learned and continue to learn about how to be happy, no alcohol needed.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to No Alcohol Needed, the podcast. We're so happy to have you here with us. And we're hanging out with Christina and Amber, and of course, me and Steve. And we are going to dig into a little bit of self-forgiveness today. So we know we've got listeners out there who have done some stuff in their past that still just feels pretty awful. And the shame is still eating them alive. I think we've all been there to some extent. And it affects every part of your life, right? So your relationships and the work that you do and the way that you see yourself and all of it gets affected when you're swimming in shame and regret and all of the stuff that comes with that. So we are going to talk about how to find a way to forgive yourself, what that looks like, because it can feel completely impossible. But we've all been there. Everybody's been there at some point in their life. And we're going to start talking about what steps you can take to start forgiving yourself. So we're going to start out just by talking about what are the thoughts that come up when you're stuck in some shame story about your past? What does that look like for you guys?
I feel like there's been moments where I felt like I didn't deserve anything better for, some of the horrible things that I've done and said in my past that I didn't feel that I could come back from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one that comes up for me too. I don't deserve anything. I would look around at my kids, my family, my life, and be like, I don't deserve any of this good stuff. Like, if they knew what a horrible person I was, then these people wouldn't like me, or friends, family, whatever. It's like you're carrying all these secrets and stories.
yeah,
I'm waiting for Amber to say something. Like she has something on her tongue, but she's like,
yeah.
I know, right? Like
And that's the core of it. It's yeah, like I don't deserve to be happy, I don't deserve to be successful. I don't deserve any of those things, because I've just was a poopy person. I know I can swear, but yeah, I was just a crappy person. And so it's definitely a belief. It's a self-imposed belief that I don't deserve the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like I've even had moments where it's been like, why even try to be better because this is just who I am,
Yeah,
Yep.
it becomes
that
like your
one-
identity.
that one sticks.
Yeah.
This is just who I am. This is just how I am is another one
Mhm.
That shame cycle is like a self-perpetuating bat that continued to like slap me around, hit me around, call it whatever you want. I don't think bats slap. I think they do more hitting. Uh, I was like, the mental image of the thing that I just said was not good.
Fly
It
swatter?
didn't match. It's not. Yeah, it's still. Yeah, swatting me
Fly
around.
swatter, yeah.
It. I always ended up in the like not good enough, and even if I tried, it still wasn't good enough. And so I ended up in the point where it was why bother trying. And it was when I stopped trying that my shame cycle got worse than it did get better.
Mhm.
I had to continue trying. My problem was is I tried the same thing over and over again,
Mhm.
expecting a different result, I guess. I mean, we've heard that one a million times over, but really, when I look back at it, I communicated the same way over and over, wishing to be understood or heard or something. And if that fell on deaf ears, then I didn't have a different way to say it. I didn't have a different way to communicate it. I didn't have so I would say it the same way, louder
Mm.
or differently, angry, sadness. Like, how else could I express this thing that I didn't know how to express? That in the end, I was just ashamed of trying to express because it landed in a place that I guess didn't comfort me when I needed the comforting either.
Mhm. I think there was a part of me that was just like, no matter what I do, I'm never gonna make up for the things that I've done in my past. Like,
Mhm.
nothing's ever gonna be good enough, and I still tried. But I think, that definitely played into my and we've talked about my perfectionism since the beginning of this podcast, but I'm sure that played into it. Like, I have to be better and better and better to make up for this piece of shit that I really am, because I don't want anybody to know. And I think that was a big part of it. And there was also just, like, the never-ending sense of being a failure. Like, I did this stuff. I have this stuff in my past, and that just makes me a failure. Like, end of story. There's nothing I'm going to do to come back from it. I'm just a failure. Um, and that is a horrible thing to live with because you're carrying it with you every day and it's so heavy and it just bogs you down no matter what you're trying to do. It impacts the way you see yourself in every situation in life.
You're
And I
fighting
think
against something you feel like you can't control.
for sure, absolutely. Yeah. So if we talk about like these shame stories and stuff, why is it so hard for people to talk about the shame stuff? When we walk into groups like this, when we're sitting down with a close friend, somebody we trust, whatever it is, why is it so hard to talk about the stuff that we need to forgive ourselves for, but we struggle to?
Mostly, I think because we think, you know, we're very isolated, prior to that. Um, so the story I told myself was like, I'm the only one that thinks this way or feels this way. Um, like I'm alone in that. Um, and also like you identify with what you feel. And so what you feel becomes who you are. Like what you feel about yourself becomes who you are. So you're like, I don't want to share these things because I don't want, I don't want people to know what I truly think and do, I because they're going to judge me, like if I feel this way about myself, I can only imagine what other people are going to feel about me when I talk openly about thoughts and behaviors and things like that. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like they're absolutely going to feel the same way about me that I feel about me, and I don't want them to feel that. I want them to continue thinking that I'm like this great wonderful person. Um I don't want to destroy that image.
Yeah. What about you, Christina? Why is it hard to talk
Um,
about this stuff?
I think it's just because it just adds to the guilt that you feel, for whatever you're keeping inside. I think, you don't want, just like Amber said, you don't want somebody else to really feel that way about you, the way you feel about yourself. It's the guilt. And I did write down, like, wrote some notes about, before it was easier, we thought it was easier when you were drinking, you could just drink and you would just numb it out, and then I said only to feel it tenfold after. And then now you're feeling it all, and it's just too much. You
Mhm.
think it's too much, and you just need to honestly, I think just finding someone you can really talk to would probably be easy, but that's easier said than done. Would make it easier anyway.
Right.
I felt like a burden. Like, I don't wanna burden
Mhm.
people with this. People have enough going on. They don't need to hear, my sob story about, you know, how guilty I'm feeling or how whatever it is that's going on. I didn't wanna I just didn't wanna I didn't wanna bother people or burden people, um, 'cause I was a people pleaser, I wanted to please people, and the opposite of that is burdening them with with my stuff. So, just deal with it
Card
myself.
card carrying people pleaser here too.
Okay.
Um, yes, man. Card carrying. Yes, man. Absolutely. Um, how many times? Um, because I was a person that was a fairly naive person as well, so I would continue to like try and be honest or real. Like it's part of my nature, and I can't say how many times I would say something or be honest and real and tell a little bit of the truth. I mean, I had my own batch of lies. Don't get me wrong. But then it would turn around and I would hear, "That didn't happen that way,"
Mm.
or, uh, "Don't talk about those things," or I think those 2 come up the most, but if I'm trying to share and trying to be vulnerable and and I my shame gets released after I do that in the right place. So if I do this and I share with you, Julie, and then you tell me that didn't happen that way and this is how it happened and you start telling me how I'm supposed to feel instead of listening to how I'm trying to share about whatever it is, then I'm now going to look at my sharing as something I shouldn't do, in which case then I'm bad for sharing or talking about it or trying or bringing it up in the first place. And you notice how I said I'm bad. The
Mhm.
only way I can control all of this is to once again give it to me. I'm clearly the problem. And then so I need to do something about it, but I don't know what to do. So I'm the shame person. I'm the problem. And I think a lot of it landed is I'm the problem.
Hmm.
And in any effort to fix my problem, and when I was trying to fix it when I was drinking, that's a fallacy we can talk about a different time. But it did lead to my shaming of myself even more because I didn't. I think that's the thing. I didn't.
Mhm. And what you're saying there is you tried to talk about some of this hard stuff. You just did it in places where it wasn't safe, and it ended up kind of dumping more shame on top of you, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I
And
mean, if you have a conversation with someone and it lands poorly and you don't have a heck of a lot of self-confidence to back it up, I was toast. I was
Mhm.
fried. Like, I just thought you were right and I was wrong.
Right. For sure.
That's where I landed. Clearly, my interpretation of the situation wasn't proper because yours and apparently everyone else's was different. And I just couldn't stand up for myself. And in not standing up for myself, my own shame cycle got worse.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I did the opposite to try and alleviate it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I could just say yes more, I would do right more.
Yeah.
And
like people please to make up for all the shame, right? Is that what you're saying there?
yeah, because clearly I was bad and I was wrong. So if I was right or did more better, yes, proper English right there. You know what I mean, though? I if I said yes more, then maybe I could make up for my lack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, and I didn't try to talk to anybody about, like, I was carrying some fairly significant shame stories, mistakes, things I'd done, whatever it may be, and I didn't want to tell anybody. Shame keeps us silent because we think if we don't tell anybody, then we won't feel shame, right? We're so afraid that if we start talking about these shame stories, that we're going to feel even more shame. So it just keeps you silent. You're like, as long as nobody finds out, then I can just keep this a secret. Nobody will have to know how bad I really am. And what we don't realize, what it took me years to realize, is that it's when you talk about those things in a place that's safe with a person you can trust, the shame actually starts lifting and you realize you're not the horrible person that you thought you were. And it's a magical feeling. But if you've never experienced, and especially if you've been shamed for trying to speak up and not doing it good enough or not saying the right things or whatever, then, then that shuts you down even more. But at the end of the day, it's talking about the things you're ashamed of that actually makes the shame go away. And the only way you can believe that is to actually experience it, because it goes against everything in you, because you just want to keep it hidden so nobody finds out, right?
Yeah, that I was gonna say it's like you don't want to ruin the image that you are trying to, put out there for other people. The way other people you want other people to see you. You don't want them to know the truth. And that's really no way to live.
No. Well, and it's like, if these people find out, then I'm not going to be worthy of friendship. I'm not going to be worthy of love. Nobody's going to like me. They're all going to know what kind of person I really am. And
Exactly.
so got to keep it all inside, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I also, I there's a part of me too that, like you say, talking about these things in a safe space. Like I had people in my life that it's like I knew if I talked about things, they were gonna want to like try and fix it. And I didn't want, like, that would like overwhelm me more. And it would like, it would give me anxiety, because then it's like you put this thing out there and then this person is like, hey, I like do this, do this, do this, or you should, or whatever, which, because I don't have the tools to then take that, I like come to this defensive stance. Now I have to defend myself against the things that I have like opened up about, because people want to like fix it. And then it's just, I'm like, I'll just not talk about it at all. Let's just, no,
Right.
everything's fine. I'm fine.
How,
Everything's fine. World is
how
burning
many?
down. It's
Oh, yeah.
fine. Really. No, don't worry about it. I promise you, I'm good.
And as you walk out the front door, the house just catches on fire,
Exactly.
right?
Like fire
It's
starter. Like you're walking away and it's just like, it's just a whole, yeah, just a whole, everything's ablaze. And I just didn't, those conversations were uncomfortable because I felt like it wasn't helpful, the what I was getting, because again, I was talking to people who didn't fully understand what it was I was trying to communicate, and so they were trying to help in their own way, but it didn't help, and it made me feel worse, and then it would turn into this sort of tug of war. And so I just was like, it's just easier if I just keep my head down and just do the things and pretend I'm having a good time in life.
Mhm.
how many times when you started defending yourself, did it go well?
Never.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
Never.
like literally think about that for a minute. Because I've thought about this before. And anytime I got into defending my position, I was fucked. Like, that person wasn't going to hear me all of a sudden, even though I continued to press and force the issue. I was as soon as I started doing that, I was losing, and so I would push harder and harder and harder, and I would be the one that always felt like I was left holding the bag.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talk about adding some more shame to the pile.
And we've got a couple of podcast episodes that are specifically about how to find the right kind of support, to find safe people to talk to, and how to identify that. So I will link those in the description, in the show notes, because I think sometimes we don't even know what that looks like. We don't know what we're looking for. So we show up in a conversation, or we show up with a person we think is safe, and it ends up feeling worse. And then that just reinforces the belief that if I talk about the hard things, I talk about these things that I'm ashamed of, I talk about the things that I can't forgive myself for, it's just going to make it even worse. And so definitely encourage all of our listeners out there to know what that means to find somebody who feels safe. And if you don't have a friend or a significant other or a group or whatever that is where you feel safe, find yourself a therapist, find yourself a coach, find somebody who can actually show up for you in a helpful way when you're looking to start working through forgiving yourself, because that is one of the most important things here is talking about this stuff. We have to talk about it. We can't keep it inside, but we've got to talk about it with somebody who can hold that and not hurt us with it, because it's a very real possibility and it'll just set us back even more.
We host a meeting that is not AA. Every time someone says meeting, the first thing that pops up into people's mind is AA and whatever and what that's like. What we host a meeting every Monday night at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time, and it's on Zoom. You can do it. You can join us from the comfort of your own home. You can have your camera on. You can have your camera off. There are people that show up and that are shy, and it takes them some time to warm up because the shame that you're talking about keeps us in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to overcome that in places where the darkness thrives. So you're welcome to join us at our meeting if that's something you feel like you want to try. It's on Zoom. You can go to our website. The link is there. You can sign up for the newsletter. You'll get a link, and you'll even get the topic
Yeah.
for the meeting that night. And you're just welcome to join us.
It's a great place to find people who know how to show up, who aren't going to dump more shame on top of you.
We've
I
been
want
there.
to talk a little bit about the difference between guilt and shame, because I think this is important and this is something a lot of people miss. So to keep it brief, shame is the belief that I am bad, and it's something you carry with you and it becomes your identity. Guilt is I did something bad. I screwed up. Right. And I feel really bad about it. And I wish I hadn't done that. How can we use guilt in a healthy way? Like, how can guilt be useful? Because I think we need to talk about how we can use it in positive ways. It's not there just to hold you down. Guilt isn't there just to make you feel bad. Bonus points if you have an actual story you want to share about how when you used guilt in a helpful way.
I have a story for guilt.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. You're involved in said story.
Of course I am.
We actually talked about this not too long ago. Sometimes when we actually talked about this in our meeting last night, and we talked about it about going into fix-it mode. And sometimes I will go into fix-it mode when you are sharing something with me, and I will steamroll you thinking I can help you solve your problem. And when I steamroll you to help you solve your problem, because surely I know what's right for you and you don't, which makes no sense. Anyways, what happens is after, because I don't often catch myself in the moment, but I will after. And after that conversation is over, I have this really uneasy feeling like I missed something. I didn't hear you properly. Like there is this tinge that I carry, and I'm going, oh, yep, I messed up here. That was not a give me some advice and help me through my problem moment. That was a sit with me, listen to me and hear my problem so I can help myself solve this.
Mhm.
And like there's two very different ways to go about that, and sometimes we need to be called out. I like to call people out on their stuff. I get joy from from it, and so I need to hold myself back. Um it's
Amber's
the
sitting over
truth.
there like, yeah, no, we know.
I know, it's the truth, and I need to hold myself back because it's important that I also am able to hold the space and not be the fix-it and not do those things. And so I can feel that guilt, and what I do is I come back and I say, "Hey, listen, here's what I think I just did."
Mhm.
And so that's the guilt, which is the motivating factor because it's coming from that feeling of I think I messed something up. And then I'll reach back out to you and be like, "Hey, did this just happen?" Which
Right.
generally speaking, you're like, "Yeah." And then I ask if I can hear it. Like, "Can you share that with me?" And then the other thing is I ask, "Is there a better way, or can we communicate it differently so I can catch it before instead of have to come back after feeling like my tail is between my legs?"
Right.
Um, because it sucks to eat your own crow, but at the same time, that's what guilt does. That's what guilt does for me now. It gives me an opportunity to like introspect a little bit,
Mhm.
and then I have to have the courage to approach the person in which the guilt feeling exists with, because I've done this the other way too, where I was absolutely wrong and I was carrying guilt for no reason.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
because I had the courage to bring it up, then that person was honestly and truly like, no, that's not how that was. What happened there was great, or whatever that is. I mean, there's two ways there. But anyways,
Mhm.
guilt is a very motivating factor for me to try and fix it, but in, I guess, a trust building way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put that. For sure. What about you guys, Amber, Christina?
Yeah, I like, it's funny because it's such a guilt is like there's no it's messy in the sense of like breaking it down even one step farther. Like sometimes you feel guilty and you may not have done anything wrong, right? And so I feel like you're just there's a discomfort there. There's a conversation that was had and then there's some discomfort. And then because you're uncomfortable with how that conversation went, maybe you had to say something that was hard to somebody or and then maybe they take some space, right? And then now you start like self-imposing guilt like you did something wrong and then you go back and then you try to fix it and then it just like it becomes this really complicated and so I think for me like guilt is sort of like it's like an alarm or like a flag, it's like a hey, let's pause here for a second, and it's like I'm having this feeling and then you kind of have to break it. You have to sit with yourself and you have to say, okay, here was the conversation, here's what I said, or break it down to be like, did I actually do something wrong? Or am I just feeling uncomfortable because that person is uncomfortable and now I feel like I have to make them feel better, which means I have to manipulate their emotions so that they don't feel uncomfortable anymore. It's That's how I would operate anyways. And
Mhm.
so I ended up, always trying to fix stuff. Um, because I didn't know how to fix, and I don't, not even fix is the right word, because this isn't about fixing things. This is about navigating things. It's about understanding things. It's like you're not like this broken thing that needs to be fixed. You have feelings and emotions and thoughts, and all kinds of things going on inside the body. And it's like sitting down with yourself and figuring out where it's coming from. And so guilt is, for me, it's like, if it's true guilt, right? It's like, okay, this goes against the person that I want to be. This
Mhm.
action goes against the person that I want to be, the person that I'm trying to be. And I feel guilty for having expressed that in that to me is just opportunity. It's opportunity, like Steve said, motivation. I say opportunity, very similar. It's an opportunity for me to do a similar thing and to maybe go to that person and say, you know, this conversation that we had has been on my mind, and I have a few things that I've thought about that perhaps maybe I could have said better, and I'd like to share those with you, and I'd like your feedback on whether that is something that would be more, better received. It's communication, but communication with yourself first in figuring out, is this guilt? Did I do something that doesn't align with who I am? And if I did, I have an opportunity to correct it. I have an opportunity to go and try and make that right. And if it's not, and it's just discomfort because something I said hurt somebody's feelings, too bad. I gotta just sit with that and understand that that's part of the process. And
I mean, if you're a card carrying people pleaser and then you say no or you stand up for yourself a little bit,
right.
the guilt that comes along with
Yes.
that.
Yes, that's exactly.
Damn.
Mhm.
There comes a point though where you can almost like appreciate that kind of guilt and be like, oh, this is the kind of guilt that means I'm growing. I am doing something
Yeah.
different. I'm
Mhm.
showing up for myself. Like, I think that's what you're talking about, Amber, that like when you first feel guilt and it's bubbling up to the surface, I think the question to ask is like, okay, did I act in a way that's not aligned with my values? Like, there's a
Mhm.
yes or no answer to that. And if the answer is no, I did not act in a way that was out of alignment, then that just means I'm okay. And, I probably stood up for myself and,
Yeah, you gotta practice it more.
yeah, that just means I'm growing, right? That
Yep.
discomfort just means I'm growing. I can tell you, like, if I can think of a few times that my daughter and I, she's 18, we've gotten into spats. It doesn't feel good. I think that just happens with mothers and daughters. But I would say something to her, and I knew at the time that it was shitty. And I like the minute it came out of my mouth, I knew it wasn't right, and I shouldn't have said it. And I still like walked away and tried to convince myself that it was fine and whatever. And then you're sitting there like half an hour later, and it's like you can feel the guilt, right? And you're like, we're not speaking. And for us to not speak is kind of a rare thing. So we're not speaking. She's got her door shut, and you can feel the guilt start to build up. And at that moment, I have two options. I can ignore the guilt and I can slowly let that spiral into shame, like what a crappy mom I am and how she
Mhm.
deserves better and all of this, whatever. Like, and it doesn't take very long for it to start going from dang, I screwed up to I suck as a mother and she deserves better. And like, I mean, my brain can jump there fast. Or I can be like, all right, I screwed up. I said something I shouldn't have because I'm human and because my emotions got the better of me. And the thing to do right now is to go knock on her door and ask if I can talk to her and apologize. And it doesn't feel good. It never feels good to say, hey, I screwed up. But there's it guilt acts as fuel for us to change our behaviors. And if you
Mhm.
have to show up and apologize, then that means you're going to learn your lesson because it doesn't feel good. You don't want to have to do it again. And so we can use guilt as fuel to grow and to learn and to deepen our relationships in a lot of ways, to come back and reconnect. And I think that's the difference. When we talk about guilt and shame is I'm just going to hold on to this. I'm going to let it eat me alive. Guilt is I'm going to go do something about this and make sure that behavior doesn't continue, whatever that was.
And that is the definition of an apology.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I
What
was
about
going
you,
to say
Christine?
something like similar. I was going to say, my kids are 9 and 11, but I have caught myself where I will say something like I'm guilting them into something, making them feel guilty, like if they're not going somewhere with me, if they're not doing something. And then I will realize what I said. And I'm like, that was not really, I'm not teaching them a good lesson in acting that way either, So then I'll go and I'll apologize and say, what I said wasn't right. And I mean, it's not like it's usually, nothing that's too crazy, but and they don't even realize, they're like, oh, it's fine. And it's like, well, this way I'm teaching them, that it's
Mhm.
okay to, say when you say something that you didn't mean or whatever. So,
Mhm.
so guilt can be a learning tool for everybody, everybody
Definitely.
involved.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's no learning with shame. Shame is just like it's a dead end. There's no room for growth because shame is like, well, I'm bad. I'm a terrible person. I'm a piece of shit. Um, where do you go from there? That's a dead end
Mhm.
street. If you're like, I just suck, then there's no opportunity there, versus guilt is like, okay, I did this thing that was shitty and I'm not real proud of it. There's movement there. You can move from that space on the chessboard. And with shame, you can't. You've locked
Absolutely.
yourself into um a place you can't get out of because there's no room. It's yeah.
Shame is a trap. Guilt is
Mhm.
like fuel to move you forward. They're two
Mhm.
completely different things, and we get them confused so often. Yeah. So let's talk about what practicing self forgiveness actually looks like. I would love for you guys to like actually think up some story. And you don't have to tell the story if you don't want to like dump shame stories on a podcast. I get it. But walk me through what it sounds like in your head to start actually bringing yourself to a place where you forgive yourself for some of the stuff that's happened in the past. What does that actually look like? We all know that negative self talk. We all know the spiral. We all know you're a failure. You're a piece of shit. You don't deserve anything good. We all know what that feels like. What's the self talk or what's the process that you've used to move out of it and be able to live with it if you have?
The very first thing I ever did to try and move myself out of that without any external help, because it took a lot of external help too, because people saw things in me that I did not see in myself. And when they pointed those out, I was like, you're full of shit, because I couldn't accept the compliment. But I remember sitting in my office at work and not happy with myself one bit. And my internal self talk was this nasty spiral of self hatred. When I looked at myself in the mirror in the morning, I was a slob. I was, you could see my eyes and you can just see the droopiness of everything that I was. And I was puffy and getting chunky and all of the stuff. Um, but the first thing I ever did that helped me out, I decided that anytime I was going to say something negative about myself, I was going to follow it up immediately with something positive. Because there's no way we're all that bad. And so when I said something shitty about myself, and I spent a good chunk of days, this argument, but I made it a point because I was done. I was done with my own self-loathing. I was done with the pain that I was causing myself. And I was done with this internal head talk that wasn't getting me anywhere. Clearly it wasn't getting me anywhere because if things kept getting worse over time, not better. And so I would follow up every single shitty thing I said about myself inside my head with something good. And it was really, 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 really hard at the beginning because I could not find any good. So I kept it simple. I made it very simple. You know what? I'm proud of you for accomplishing that small task at work. You aren't stupid. You aren't an idiot. You're smart. Even though I didn't feel smart, it feels insane to do. But soon I was done arguing with myself, and that little nattery voice that wanted to continue to hold me down, which was me, for me, started to shut up because I had an argument. And I started to believe in myself more than I did before. And that is the small little tool, the little thing that I did pretty early on. That is, I changed my entire internal dialogue.
Mm. Yeah, that's huge. What about you, ladies? What comes up for you when what does self-forgiveness actually look like in your life?
I feel like I just didn't, I just kind of knew the kind of person I wanted to be and knew who I didn't want to be and knew when I would catch myself, getting sober really helped, do this because it made me realize just, how good things can be. And so knowing who I wanted to be, if I would catch myself doing something or saying something to myself or to somebody else that didn't reflect that, I would be able to then tell myself like, stop, you know, I, I don't know. It seems like so simple, but that's really, really what it is. I feel like.
Mhm. Yeah, just catching yourself in the moment, right?
Hmm.
And switching the thought process, which has to happen like 1,000 times in
Yeah.
any
Yeah,
situation
it's
because
not quick.
yeah, you
Forever.
don't just yeah, you're not just like, "Okay, I forgive myself," and then you move on and everything's
Right.
better. Yeah, you have to catch it over and over again and keep rewriting it over and
Hmm.
over, for sure. What about you, Amber?
Hmm. So it comes up for me. So I guess definitely self-talk, 100%. That has been the key to all of the things. You do it so unconsciously, right? You're just going about your day and you screw something up and you're like, I'm such an idiot. It just comes out. It's so, yeah, I'm just an idiot. And taking the identifying factors away. And I say that it's like when I stopped identifying with the thing that I was doing that wasn't going well or wasn't going the way that I wanted, I stopped identifying that with who I was and would reframe it to, okay, I'm not an idiot. I don't know, but I am struggling with this thing. I don't know how to do this thing. I've never done this thing before, or even if I had, right? And it's something that I keep screwing up, right? And I was just like, well, I just keep doing this because this is what I do. It's like, no, this is what you've done, and you did this with the tools that you had. So what do you need going forward to make it so that this is not something that you do anymore? Because everything in it becomes more and more part of my life. Is every reframe for me becomes, this is I'm gonna back I'm gonna not back talk, but not I don't want to identify with the things, but I'm learning how to identify with the things in a healthy way, in like saying, like working out, right? It's not something I have to do. I'm not shaming myself into doing it. I'm not, this gross piece of crap that needs to da 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 da, like all these terrible reasons. It's no, because I feel good when I do it. And this is just something that I want to do. It's something that I do. It's something that's part of me. So it goes the same way when I do something that is in alignment with me. It's like not a reflection of who I am as a person. It's just this particular thing in this particular moment that I don't have the tools or the skills to navigate. So how do I change that? How do I fix that? Um, and then the other part of it, when it comes to the things in my past, we talk about forgiveness and we talk about how forgiving other people is not for them, it's for us, right? And so if we do that with other people, then why wouldn't we do that with ourselves? And so if I can reframe it to be, I forgive the version of myself that made those choices because she didn't have the right skills. It's like forgiving my mother, which took a lot of work because she was a human being and because she didn't have the skills and she didn't have the tools and she didn't know how to ask for help to help herself. So I forgive her for not having those things and as a result not giving me the things that I needed when I was a child. And so if I can do that with other people to free myself of the burden, of suffering for other people's actions, then I can do that with myself and I can separate the iterations of myself because from the time we're born till the time we die, we're hundreds of thousands of millions of iterations of ourselves. Who I am right now recording this podcast is different than who I was last Tuesday. Like it's literally because there's all these little things that happen through the course of a day and a week and months and years. And so we're constantly evolving. So, yeah, the version I was, the iteration of myself that I was 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever the thing happened, I can forgive that version of myself for that thing. And I can learn from it and not do those things in this iteration of myself or help myself future iterations of myself to learn here from those pasts and continue to evolve in a healthy way. And that frees
Mhm.
me. It frees me of the burden of carrying around all of this weight for all of these decisions that have already been made. They're already done. They're gone. I cannot change them. I also can't enjoy where I am right now in this moment, in the present, the people that I'm around, the job that I do, where I live. I can't enjoy any of that if I'm not here mentally and emotionally, if I'm still thinking about shit I did 10 years ago. So it's so hard, but you have to forgive the past, your past versions of yourself for the things that you did because now like I can look back and I will be like, I will never do that. I know that for a fact. Like I will never do that again. That's enough. Like that is enough for you to forgive yourself. If you have something that you did in your past that that you have or have grown and you've worked on, and you're not going to do that again, that's enough. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be more burdensome or complicated than that, and you can let that piece go and move
Mhm.
on. Yeah, that's what I
So
do.
much wisdom in that, and I love the idea of different iterations of yourself. I've looked at
Mhm.
that in a lot. I've thought of that in similar ways, but you described that so perfectly. Yeah, I really appreciate that insight and just that description that you just gave us. When I think back on stuff that I struggled to forgive myself for or have struggled to forgive myself for, there's like two versions of it. There's the stuff that I did that hurt me, that I still will still come up to the surface sometimes, and there's the stuff that I did that hurt other people. And either way, like you said, Amber, that was a different version of who I am. I am not that person anymore. And all I can do is look at that and say, okay, obviously I needed to learn a lesson there and I learned my lesson and I do differently now. I will not be that version of myself again. And I can trust that. There's like, it comes up though, and it still comes up. There's still times where I'm like, I can't believe I freaking wasted 10 years of my life drinking. Like that
Mhm.
still hurts. It doesn't stop
Mhm.
hurting. Right. I literally lost out on a decade of my life because I spent it mostly drunk. Um, and every time it comes to the surface, all I can do is have that conversation with that past version of myself and be like, okay, but you didn't know better. You didn't have any, you had no other way to handle your life and your feelings and your situation. And that's the best you could find to keep yourself alive and trying to function. So I forgive you for not knowing any better. And I have to have that conversation. I mean, it doesn't happen as often, I think, probably because I've had that conversation enough times, but there are still times that it'll happen. I'll be going through a day and for absolutely no reason, this thing comes up, right? Or this memory of a time that I said something that hurt another person. And it'll just come up out of the blue. Like, and it likes to hold on, right? The guilt, the shame, whatever, it tries to hold on and it tries to keep you there. And it's a constant conversation of, okay, you know what? But you didn't know better. And now you do. And now you're doing differently. And that's the best, that's the absolute best you can do here. So you have to release it. The other thing that came up that I was thinking about when I was thinking about this topic is I feel like to some extent, when we forgive ourselves or even when we forgive other people, it's like we don't want to forgive because then that's like saying it's okay that that happens. Like that's
Mhm.
okay with me.
Mhm.
And I think that we hold ourselves hostage. And again, that's with forgiving ourselves and forgiving others, where we don't want to say it's okay. We don't want to tell ourselves it's okay that you did that. And that's not what forgiveness is. But I think we get lost in that and don't understand. It's not just saying, yeah, it's fine that that happened. It's no big deal. It's saying, I don't appreciate this thing that you did, or, it hurts me that I did this to myself. And also, I trust me to not do that again. So I'm going to go ahead and release that shame and that guilt because I can trust myself to do differently. It's not saying it's okay. And I think that's where we almost hold on to it. Like we want to keep it so we can prove that it was really important versus just saying, okay, I'm going to process this and I'm going to trust myself to do better next time.
You can say, that's not good.
Right.
And I'm going to decide to not continue to punish myself for the thing that potentially you did or the thing that I did that wasn't good. And by not punishing myself, I mean deciding that that's not a thing that I'm going to do anymore. Just like you said, Julie. What came up for me as I listened to you both share was forgiveness is truly just the thing that we get to give to ourselves. And we have that kind of power.
Mhm.
Most of the time we give forgiveness away to others in hopes that they say, yes, I forgive you. And if we wait for that forever, we can easily punish ourselves and shame ourselves because we're not receiving that from someone else. I'm not saying that I'm perfect or that I did lots of, I'm over the things that I did that I knew that weren't right. I'm just not going to punish myself today over them because I know it's not a thing that Steve does anymore.
Mhm. Withholding forgiveness for yourself is just continuing to punish yourself over and over and over again. Amber, I'm gonna give you the floor and let you explain that. I think it's from the 4 agreements that you've brought up before, right? Do you want to share that? Because I'll butcher it, but you'll say it just right.
Yeah, no, where he talks about it is the 4 agreements. And he talks about the fact that we are the only species that does that.
Mhm.
We are the only species that, other species, they're out in the wild, right? And they make a mistake and they're like, oh shit, I just fell down that hole, right? And like they don't sit and sulk in the corner of the pasture. They will avoid, they will avoid, and like watch where they're walking and avoid falling in holes again. That's growth, that's learning. That's like, hey, maybe I should pay attention to where I walk. And I'm sure that thought process is a little different for a cow than it is for a human. But it's like we are our judge, our jury, and our executioner. All we like we do it all. We judge the behavior and then, the jury convicts us of it, and then we execute ourselves for it, and then we just do it over and over and over again.
Right.
And it's insanity,
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, we're the only species that does it. And so
That just
maybe
You know
we
what?
should
keeps punishing ourselves over and over and over again
over and
for the
over and
same
over
mistake for years.
for years.
I
Yeah,
just had this thought too that forgiveness is something that's deeply personal.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
So often we
definitely.
look for it at like outside of us, but it's a deeply personal thing. It's a deeply internal thing. It's probably why it's so hard.
You have to give yourself permission
Hmm.
to forgive yourself. And that is hard when you've been beating yourself up for weeks, months, years over the same thing to finally say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to give myself permission to give myself forgiveness, to let myself start moving forward and start doing things differently. And that is hard to do when you don't know any different, but to hold yourself in that place. But there's so much freedom in that permission to start living differently.
Yeah.
So
When
I'm
you
going to,
feel,
oh,
oh, sorry. I just was going to say it. The freedom part it's unlike anything that you could describe unless you do it. And I
Hmm.
highly, I hope the listeners, just give it a try. Cause like we are our biggest cheerleader or our biggest, to sit down with yourself and say what you are wanting to hear from other people. When you do that for yourself, and I can sit down sometimes and just be like, "Hey, Amber, you know what? It's good. I forgive you. We're
mhm,
okay. I love you. I forgive you. Let's just, let's move on and learn from this." Like I would with somebody that I care about in my life, like a friend who made a mistake and we've talked about it and we've worked through it. And I can say, you know what? Stop beating yourself up, girl. It's okay. We're good. We've learned from it. We've grown from it. Let's continue on this journey together, right? When you do that for yourself, holy cow, that release is just absolutely one of the most powerful, powerful gifts you can give to yourself, hands down.
it's an incredible weight that just gets lifted off your shoulders. That, like, we carry so much weight through our lives, we don't even realize it until we find a way to set some of it down and it feels like you're going to float away, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to throw out our closing question here and wrap this up. If you guys will each just share your thoughts. If somebody listening right now feels like the things that they did in the past make them unworthy of forgiveness, what would you want them to understand?
All right, I'll share my thoughts on this. I think that, I would say that we all have a past and it doesn't have to define who you are today. You can acknowledge the mistakes that you made, accept responsibility, make amends, apologize if you need to, leave the past mistakes in the past, learn from them and grow. And my favorite quote is nothing changes if nothing changes. So that was my thoughts on the closing question.
Absolutely. Love that quote.
Hmm.
What about you, Amber?
Um, that it's just bullshit. It's just
Facts.
it's just bullshit. Of course you're worthy. Like we exist. We're human beings. There are so many things going on, like to make us walk, talk, breathe, exist every day. Some shit's gonna get crossed. Wires are gonna get crossed, and stuff's gonna happen, right? And you're gonna make decisions, and you're gonna make decisions you're not proud of. That has nothing to do with your worth as a human being. Absolutely nothing. They are completely separate things. What you do isn't who you are. who you are is always just a beautiful, wonderful, like amazing creature of the universe, of God, whatever it is that you believe in, whatever you believe in created us. Big Bang Theory, right? We exist for a reason, and we're just worthy because we exist. So all the stories you tell yourself about the things that you've done, like, well, that's great, but you haven't done this. And this is the thing that makes me unworthy. It's not. It has nothing to do with your worth as a person. And when you can separate those and you can stand and say, I am worthy of love, and I am worthy of compassion, and I'm worthy of respect, and I'm worthy of all of these things because I exist. That's when you start learning. That's when you start learning how to set boundaries. Why? Because I am worthy of respect, and I'm worthy of love, and I'm worthy of having this healthy relationship. And when you come from a place of worth, everything else just starts to gravitate towards you to give you what you need to be able to continue to create in that space.
Mhm.
So nothing you've done is so bad that it makes you unworthy of love at all.
Agreed. That unworthiness is shame, right? And shame is like a prison, and you are the only person who has a key to let yourself out. So when you decide to forgive yourself for the things that you've done, that's just saying, hey, I trust you to have learned to do better and to choose to do better going forward. And that is what forgiveness is in the end.
I was never, ever the only one. I was never the only one that did this thing. I was never this uniquely identified person that no one could ever relate to. That in and of itself made me feel like I was unforgivable because I had done this thing that no one else has ever done. Shame dies and forgiveness shows up when secrets are told in safe places. That's it.
Love that.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Christina. Julie, as always. Listeners, as always. This was kind of like a shame, forgiveness, guilt, little bit of a heart dark episode, and I hope you listeners got some great wisdom, some relatability, and hopefully you see some light.
Yeah.
Because there is light at the end of that tunnel. So hope to see you back next time. Hit like, subscribe. My microphone almost fell down. Follow for more of all of this greatness. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.